Hello everybody, hope you're having a good day. I'm just going to have a bit of a discussion in this video about our coach, Brad Scott, and whether he's the right person for the job, whether he's the right person going forward long term in terms of his role. And the reason I wanted to do that is there is a bit of a polarising view amongst Essendon supporters towards our coaches. And I've noticed this, whoever the coach has been, probably since Kevin Sheedy. Every single coach, no matter who they've been, have been criticised, with the possible exception of Hurd, he was criticised by lots of people, but he was probably deified, I think, James, by large sections of our supporter base, put on an undeserved kind of godlike tier that he probably didn't deserve, but nevertheless that was probably because of his fantastic playing career, of course, and we all know how much we appreciate that. But even he was criticised, and everybody's been criticised, and it just got me thinking about how we rate coaches in general across the AFL. And I have some strong views on this, and I'm going to get into them, and then I'm just going to get into my personal views on Brad Scott and whether he is the right person for us in the short term and medium term. So my views on coaches are that they get far too much credit when a team wins, but by the same token, they also get far too much blame when a team loses. It goes both ways. And I think it comes down to the correlation-causation fallacy.
What the hell are you talking about?
And what that basically is people, human beings, we look at an event and we see A happen, and then we see B happen after A, and we think that A caused B. So a perfect example, we see Alistair Clarkson coaching Hawthorn. He wins 4 premierships, gets called a super coach. He's the next coming of God. He's just a genius. So people attribute Hawthorn's success to Alistair Clarkson in particular. But then, as we see, Alistair Clarkson goes on and coaches North Melbourne. He doesn't have the cattle, he doesn't have the players at his disposal, and can barely win a game. And it just goes to show you that coaches do tend, in my view, to be very much overrated. And unless you've got the cattle at your disposal, and in Hawthorn's case, not just the cattle, but also a strong administration, a strong off-field leadership group from the president down, you are not going to be successful. And there's lots of examples of this throughout history. Dennis Pagan, for example, was put on a massive pedestal as being a super coach, and no doubt he was. I'm not actually downplaying the ability of these coaches. But when he went to Carlton, he won the wooden spoon. And we also saw the same thing Mick Malthouse when he went to Carlton. He didn't get the wooden spoon, but his team performed poorly at Carlton because he just didn't have the players at his disposal, just like Dennis Pagan didn't. Even Kevin Sheedy ourselves, he goes to GWS and wins 1 game. Now, that's not surprising. They're obviously got a very young team when they first entered the competition, but it just goes to show you, unless you've got the cattle at your disposal, it just won't matter. And by the same token, even at the moment, people are putting Chris Fagan on a massive pedestal. I have no doubt that if Chris Fagan was coaching the West Coast Eagles, they would still have come last and would probably have won just the 1 game. And I'll also say, I do not think there are bad coaches in the AFL. And I know people will probably jump down my throat, but these are 18 positions that are plum jobs in the Australian sporting landscape. They're up against very, very high competition to get these roles. They've had to go through numerous apprenticeships at various clubs with different development roles and midfield coaches and defensive coaches and all that before eventually acquiring the role as a senior coach. And to do that, you have to know what you're doing. Every single coach, to some extent, is a good coach. But unless you've got the players at your disposal, it just won't matter. Now, that doesn't mean that a coach isn't important to an extent. I just don't think that they are as important as some other factors. And I think, obviously, the talent you've got at your disposal is more important, but I also think that a stable administration is probably the most important thing. In all my time watching football, and I've been watching for about 4 decades, I've never seen a team win a premiership without a stable administration. It's just never, ever happened. Unless you are stable from the top down, it's just not going to happen. And I think too many supporters do fall into the trap of the sugar hit of when a good coach comes to a club, like when Alistair Clarkson goes to North Melbourne. But even I'll go one step further, when Malcolm Blight went to St Kilda. All the St Kilda supporters thought, this is fantastic. We've got the dual premiership coach from Adelaide. He's absolutely fantastic. But, I mean, at the end of the day, his heart wasn't in it at the Saints, and he probably just didn't have the players to be able to pull it off. And, of course, he ended up getting sacked halfway through the year. I think that was probably more to do with his attitude than his coaching ability. But it just goes to show you that the sugar hit of just getting a coach isn't the be-all and end-all. And I would encourage everybody listening to this to not fall into the correlation equals causation fallacy, to not fall for it, to not attribute success to one person, to the coach, because it's so easy to attribute it to the head of the playing group, which is what the coach is. And we see this in numerous other examples. We see Damien Hardwick, of course, who achieved absolutely nothing in his first 7 years as coach of Richmond. He did have 3 elimination finals losses, but there were also 4 other seasons in his first 7 where they failed to make the finals, including in his 7th season, the year before they won the premiership. And then they won it 3 times in 4 years. Now all of a sudden the narrative is that he's some sort of genius. But I bet you all the people that are saying he's a genius were not saying that at the end of his 7th season. Absolutely nobody was saying that. And if anybody was saying that, I'll tell you what, they are lying.
Liar!
So that brings me to Brad Scott. Now, whilst I don't think Brad Scott is the most important person at the football club, in fact, I don't know if there is a single most important person at the football club, but I think the president, Andrew Welsh, if there is one, is probably pretty close to it. And all the things that we put in place and the strategies that we put in place among the senior people at the club working together are going to be more important to our success than just Brad Scott himself. But looking at Brad, because it still is an important position, and we know it's an important position, what are his strengths and weaknesses? There are some suggestions that he plays favourites. That was the case at North Melbourne. And perhaps that's true. There are some players that he's had at Essendon that he likes to play above others. But he did sack Todd Goldstein, who was one of his favourites, only a couple of weeks ago. And he has turned over what will be approximately 30 players in the last 3 seasons. There is also a little bit of a narrative around Brad that he can be a little bit predictable in the way the team plays in the terms of the game plan. I think this is actually probably a reasonable criticism. But I did notice during the season that after the probably mid-season break, probably starting with the game against Brisbane, which was probably our best performance of the year, we were playing in a slightly different manner. And I think we did try to get rid of that game plan where we were chipping it round and just trying to hold possession, which I don't think was conducive to winning finals games. And Damien Hardwick himself even said when we played the Gold Coast a bit later in the year that our game plan in that particular match caught him off guard. We were playing much more attacking, we were running with the ball, and we were playing much more direct. So I think that is an encouraging sign with Brad Scott, that he has shown, I think, this season just past, that he's able to adapt and change things, which has been a little bit of a criticism of him in the past. And I think he's shown this year that he's capable of adapting. Another thing that he's been perhaps criticised for, in particular when he was at North Melbourne, was not blooding senior players. And a lot of North Melbourne supporters say that he left the list in a state of disrepair when he left the club. Well, we've just had a season in which we've blooded 15 new players. Now, there are various reasons for that with the injuries and all that, but certainly you can't say that he is unwilling to try new things this year. So I think that there is some encouraging signs there in regards to some of the criticisms or former criticisms of Brad Scott, and to how he has perhaps addressed them, and to how he is perhaps learning going forward. Do I think he's the right person for the job? Well, in the medium to short term, yes, I do. I think he should absolutely remain as the coach, and I think we need to stand by him, and we need to accept that not everything that happens on the field can be directly attributed to the coach. Because you can't say over the last 20 years that all of our lack of success has always been and solely been attributed to whoever the coach was at the time. There are lots of problems that this club has had, lots of cultural problems, and we don't need to go into all of them in this video. And it would be certainly unfair to attribute all of those problems that Brad Scott has walked into on him, especially when he's trying to fix those problems. I admit it is coming into our 4th season. We haven't seen a lot of results yet, but he has turned over around 25 players. It'll be close to 30 players in a couple of weeks. And he does need, I think, a few more years, 3 or 4 years, to have these plans that we're putting in place come to fruition. And I'm not just talking about Brad Scott here. I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about all the development coaches, and we might be making some changes in that particular field, especially with G and Siracusa leaving. There might be some alterations with the coaching panel, but not just that, all the other things, the high performance manager, the recruiter, Matt Rosa, of course, with the list managing, and all the administration and everything like that. I think it's important that these people are able to do their jobs unencumbered by political infighting, and with the support of what I hope is an encouraging supporter base. And I know it won't suit everybody. A lot of people just won't accept whoever the coach is, and they will attribute results, whatever they happen to be, to Brad and just say, look, he has to go. I just don't accept that. I think he needs time. I think he needs his 3 or 4 years to really get things in place and to get the team playing like he wants them to play. So what do you think? This is a divisive topic, I know. What do you think about Brad? Do you think he should stay? I think he should absolutely stay, and I think we need to commit to him, because I've seen coaches in the past, like Damien Hardwick, who were roundly criticised, not get results in their first few years, but the club stuck by them, and eventually it came. And what we need is stability, and it's very, very important that the senior coach is part of that stability. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love to hear it. So have a great day, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, go Bombers.